Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Rachel Klein and I will be your presenter here for the next 20 minutes. Today we're going to be talking about emailing donation statements. All right, let's go ahead and get started here. At the top of the document, a couple of things that it points out in different things that you have to do to prepare to be able to email statements. Let's go into the donations module first. So in donations, in managed givers, if you have anyone that has a D after their name or is considered a donations giver, if you want to be able to email them, you need to make sure you have an email address added to this individual. So you simply click the person and then over here to the right, you go to the phone/email tab and then you make sure whatever email their statement needs to go to is then inputted here. Okay. Now, if you are working over in membership and you have people or families that you've put in membership, you need to make sure, one, you have an email field set up over in membership in the customized field section right here. But then you also need to pay attention to how you have your individuals or your families set up. So if you have a family that is a couple or that gives together and they're both checked gives with family like Bill and Donna Bell here, you need to make sure that the email is on the primary person. So whomever has a directory report order of number 1, that is who is going to receive the donation statement via email. Okay, so Bill's number 1, Donna's number 2. They both share number 64, so that tells us they're both checked gives with family, and the system is going to default to send the donation statement to the primary person's email, which in this case, it is going to go to Bill. Okay, and that's written out up at the top there if you need a refresher. Now, let's jump back over into donations. And let's start the donation statement process. You can get to this 2 places. You can get to this right here under donation statement, and then also up here at the top under reports and export, and then donation statement. Takes you to the same place, doesn't matter how you get there. Now, if you don't change any criteria on this first screen, which typically you don't have to at year end, 2 things or 2 critical pieces of information are going to be used when pooling your people. First thing is going to be the date range. It's going to pool for the entire year. It's going to do that by default. If you need to change your date range, you can simply by clicking in the box or hitting the down arrows. It's also only going to pool people that have giving so far this year. So if we hit the number 3 button, we can tell that it's only pulling people who gave within this date range regardless of pledging. That's why the pledging is on all. Okay, hold on one second. How do I get the video? Teresa, I see your question about not being able to see the video. You might need to try to close out and come back in. Okay, sorry guys, back to where we were. Okay, only those who gave, pledging include of all, and then for the whole year. So if you don't change anything here and just hit next, that is the criteria the software is defaulting to pool. Okay, so you can simply hit next to do this. Also verify your sort order is what you want. You can sort by number, name, or zip code. And then I'm going to hit the next button. So on step 2, we have a couple things going on that we're going to need to address. The first thing is going to be, let me make this screen a little bit smaller. It's so huge. First, we're going to have to decide the statement layout. So this is going to be what someone's donation statement is going to look like. When you're emailing donation statements, it's going to take their donation statement and create a PDF of it and then use that PDF as an attachment to the actual email someone is going to receive. Okay, so make sure the statement layout is what you want. If you want to customize it, you can do so by going here into the statement designer. That's going to allow you to really do some specific things to the statement layout if you choose. Again, you don't have to. We have a lot of good videos on customizing statements if that's what you're looking for. Below that is the global memo. The global memo is a message that's going to print down at the bottom of everyone's donation statement. So if you want to add a specific thank you, or you want to add something like, hey, if you have any questions, please contact this person and include their contact information, use this little global memo button to be able to do that. Okay? So that is where you add the little message at the bottom. All right, still on step 2 here. A couple things I want to point out. You have a print column and an email column. Okay, email column, if the software sees there is no email address available for this person, it's going to put none in there. If it finds the format of someone's email address is incorrect, it's going to put the words invalid. If it finds a good usable email, it's going to give you a checkbox allowing you to be able to email that person. Okay? And then your print column is basically just a list of checkboxes for who needs to print or who doesn't. Okay? Simply check or uncheck that box. All right, we'll come back to this here in a second. Next thing I want to talk about is getting in those email credentials. So I'm going to go up here to the email tab. And right here, this is the first thing you're going to have to fill out when beginning the emailing process. This is going to be your email provider's information. Okay, so the account that I have set up for today's event is this churchwindowstestemail@gmail.com. This is a Gmail account. Again, if you're using Gmail, please download that other handout because you are going to have to create a special app password through your Gmail account, and then that app password is going to have to be put in here down in the password section. Okay, and that document will walk you through all that. But you need to put in a display name. This is going to be what appears up here in the email settings. You can have different emails set up for different people or different positions, and you can label them accordingly by using a different display name. This is only going to show here in this drop box. No one will see this during the emailing process. Then you have to put in your outgoing mail server. Okay, so this is the specific information for the email provider you are using. So whether it's Hotmail, whether it's Gmail, whether it's Yahoo, whether it's Outlook 365, whatever it might be, those credentials that are specific to that provider needs to go in here. Okay, so this is really like an address for Church Windows to be able to go out and contact Gmail's server to be able to then send an email through your account. Okay, so if you need help figuring out the host address, it's called SMTP host address. You can simply Google SMTP and then the name of your provider, and you should be able to find that pretty simple. Here at Church Windows, I have a lot of them memorized just because I do these calls all the time. But if somebody calls me with a provider I've never heard of, I'm happy to try to help you Google it to find it, figure out what the host address is. But if we can't find it, you might have to contact your provider directly. Okay. So once you have the host information filled in, you do have to perform a connection test. This is what that initial connection is up to Gmail server to make sure we can find that server. And we have a successful connection, so I'm going to say OK. And I'm green here, which means we're good to go, so I'm going to say OK here. Then you need to input your from email address. So you can use the little green plus sign here and input what your email address is, which I've already done that to save some time. And once you get the from email address in, it's automatically going to fill in your username. And then it's going to fill in the reply to. So whomever gets an email from you with their donation statement, if they hit the reply button, you can have it automatically go back to the from email address, or you can change it. Say there's a different person who's handling any questions about their statements. You could hit the green plus sign here and change the reply to email address if you wanted. All right. I am going to go ahead and put in my password that I created right before the event for this specifically. And this is that special app password that I had to do through Google. Make sure I wrote it down correctly. And if you ever need to check what your password is, feel free to hit the little eyeball and that will change the stars and show you what the characters specifically are. And I'm going to do a send test email. You're going to enter in an email address that you have access to just to verify that you've received it, and we'll say okay. Let's hope I typed in my password correctly, and I did. So then if all is good to go, you're going to get this message letting you know you should receive an email at whatever email address you put in a few minutes. Okay, typically if you get this message, you're good to go. So I'm going to say okay through this. And I'm green down here as well, so I'm going to say okay. So at this point, I have successfully sent a test email. I am now able to email my individual statements out to my people, okay? Now, one more thing that you have to have done before the email process can complete is you have to create this global email message. Okay, this global email message is the actual email itself people are going to receive. Okay, so remember their statement's going to be PDF'd and it's going to be attached to an email. This is where you compose what that email is going to look like when someone receives it. So for example, down here I have two preset ones. The subject line of the email is going to say end of year, and then in the message section you can type up whatever you want. This is just a sample, but I also like to put in here, make sure you check attachments, because sometimes people receive this and they don't realize their donation statement's actually attached to the email itself. So I do like to put that in the message section of the email itself. Okay. Then once that's done, you can come through here and you can decide who you want to email and who you want to print a statement for. So the way this process is going to work is it's going to take everybody who has an email and it's going to email each person out separately. Okay, so that's really important from a spam point, is that instead of having one massive email blast, it's going out and it's going to send the Bernards first, and then it's going to send the Knox family, and then Lawrence, and so forth. So it's going to go one by one. So the process, depending on how many emails you're sending, it can take a little bit of time, but it's also crucial that it does take some time because each person is going to get their own individual email sent out separately. Okay. Once the emailing process is complete, then you will get a print preview of the donation statements to send to your printer for all of those people who did not get their statement via email. Okay, so you're going to have the email as one process, and then you're going to have the print preview of your statements to print out. Okay. Now, on page 4, there's a couple other tips I want to point out quickly here. You can set this default email for givers box. So if you look through this screen and you see a couple people don't have checkboxes that you know you have an email for or listed on their record, you may need to set your default email. So this basically goes in and it refreshes and it tells the software, I need to mass assign this default email field. Okay, so in this drop box right here, you simply hit the down arrow and you choose which email address field from membership you want to be the default. Change all membership givers who currently have no default email or none as their default email to email address. So I want to say okay to this, and then make sure you hit save. Don't hit cancel or it won't stick. Make sure you hit save. Okay. Then anybody who wasn't updated prior to will now be updated with a little box here to be able to email. Okay. Also, let me show you a trick for down at the bottom. Let's say I want everyone who has an email to have their email box checked, but I don't want to print it. So if they have an email, I don't want it to print. And if it has to print, I don't want it to email. So let me show you how to make that configuration work. So down at the bottom, you want to click uncheck print for all. And then, oh, I forgot this checkbox real quick. Up here at the top where it says on selected, check print. if no email address. Make sure that box is checked here. And then down at the bottom, you're going to click check email for all, and then it's going to do just that. If they have an email, it's going to check their email box, and it's not going to check their print box. And then all these people will be checked to print, but not this one because their email box is checked. Okay, so make sure you follow the steps are right down at the bottom on page 4. That'll walk you through how to get this configuration if that's what you're looking for.